The U.S. government urging Americans in the Middle East to leave as the war with Iran enters its fifth day. However, many are having trouble finding a way out, and the American embassies in Jerusalem and Qatar say they are unable to help citizens evacuate. So far today, Israel has announced it's carrying out a, quote, broad wave of strikes targeting Iran's infrastructure. Israel has also continued to carry out strikes against Iranian-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. Meanwhile, the head of the United States Central Command said last night that the American military continues to carry out their own strikes in Iran 24/7. Admiral Brad Cooper said the U.S. and Israel have jointly struck nearly 2,000 targets with more than 2,000 munitions since the start of the war. And we've learned the names of the first 4 service members killed in action. You see their faces there. They are Sergeant First Class Noah Tegens of Nebraska, Sergeant First Class Nicole Ammer of Minnesota, Captain Cody Cork of Florida, and Sergeant Declan Cody of Iowa. The 4 Army Reserve soldiers were killed by a drone strike in Kuwait on Sunday. Our hearts go out to their families, and we are praying for them in this immensely difficult time. But this all comes as President Trump pushed back yesterday on claims that Israel had led the United States into war with Iran. Earlier this week, Secretary of State Marco Rubio suggested the U.S. faced an imminent threat because Israel was going to attack Iran, and Iran would then hit back at U.S. forces. But then this is how the president responded when asked about that explanation yesterday in the Oval Office.
If Israel forced your hand to launch these strikes against Iran, did that pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready, and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact because virtually everything they have has been knocked out now.
So we'll get into the negotiations in a moment. But when he talks about the imminent threat here, our understanding from our reporting was that administration officials briefed people on Capitol Hill saying there was no threat imminently. The idea that Iran was set to attack first somewhere in the U.S., that doesn't quite jive with what the intelligence was. So then Secretary Rubio sought to walk back his own comments later yesterday when speaking to reporters on Capitol Hill. In a reversal from his statement just one day earlier, the secretary said the administration's decision to attack Iran was actually unrelated to Israel's plans, as he attempted to zero in on yet another explanation for launching the strikes. Watch.
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get
Yeah, your statement is false. So that's not what I was asked very specifically. Were you there yesterday?
Yes, I asked the question.
No, were you the one that, because somebody asked me a question yesterday, did we go in because of Israel? And I said, you were asking me that follow-up. And I said, no. I told you this had to happen anyway. The president made a decision, and the decision he made was that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ballistic missile program, that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ability to conduct these attacks. That decision had been made. The president systematically made a decision to systematically destroy this terroristic capability that they had, and we carried that out. I was very clear in that answer. This was a question of timing, of why this had to happen as a joint operation, not the question of the intent. Once the president made a decision that negotiations were not going to work, that they were playing us on the negotiations, and that this was a threat that was untenable, the decision was made to strike them. Listen, let me explain to you guys this in simple English, okay? Iran is run by lunatics, religious fanatic lunatics. They have an ambition to have nuclear weapons. They intend to develop those nuclear weapons behind a program of missiles and drones and terrorism that the world will not be able to touch them for fear of those things. And this is the weakest they've ever been. Now is the time to go after them. The president made the decision to go after them, take away their missiles, take away their navy, take away their drones, take away their ability to make those things so that they can never have a nuclear weapon. That's why the president made this decision. It was the right decision, and the world will be a safer place when these radical clerics no longer have access to these weapons. You see how they're using them now. Imagine how they would use them a year from now if they had more of these.
Bring in MS Now senior national security reporter David Rohde. Okay, David, what I was finding so striking about the secretary's response there is he's backtracking on his own explanation because of the president, but then also making a substantive policy argument when he should just be explaining, okay, what did they actually see that made them launch these attacks right now? I think that's still an open explanation. Have you gotten a better one?
No, and you know Rubio on the Hill better than I do, but it was striking. I mean, again, he said on Monday, we knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. He said that very clearly, and now he's, trying to, I think, pivot back, like you said, because President Trump denied that. But it's a continuing problem. It is essentially this war of choice. And as you mentioned, they've claimed they had to act because of, intelligence of an imminent threat. And then members of Congress said, no, we were never told. There is no imminent threat. And then separately, on Friday, just hours before the bombing started, I interviewed the Omani foreign minister in Washington, and he's the one who's been mediating the talks. And he said the Iranians continue to want to negotiate, and they're offering a deal better than the one that President Obama got during his presidency. And they were also offering business deals to the Trump administration that U.S. companies could go into Iran and have oil and gas and rare earth mineral rights. So that's the problem here. And it's surprising because Rubio is a very skilled communicator that he's sort of having to clean up this mess he created.
Absolutely. And knows sort of the trigger words that you need to use on Capitol Hill to communicate with lawmakers. He himself was the head of the Intel Committee, was on Foreign Affairs, has done these briefings from the other side many, many times. Also striking, I think, to hear the way that the Omani foreign minister was fully aware of what kind of deal sweeteners might work in a Trump era, talking about a better deal than Obama and business deals being on the table. But let's zero in a little bit more on those negotiations, because you've got some really great new reporting for MS Now on diplomats who claim Trump's special envoy actually undermined these Iran talks. I want to play sound from envoy Steve Witkoff from Monday, and then we'll get to your latest reporting on the other side. Watch.
Let me say this, because I forgot this small little detail. In that first meeting, both the Iranian negotiators said to us directly, with no shame, that they controlled 460 kilograms of 60%, and they're aware that that could make 11 nuclear bombs, and that was the beginning of their negotiating stance. So they were proud of it. They were proud that they had evaded all sorts of oversight protocols to get to a place where they could deliver 11 nuclear bombs.
David, why is that significant?
So I saw him, that shot of him saying that, and that just sort of startled me, and it didn't fit the narrative I had heard about how these talks were going. So we checked with people that have knowledge of the talks, and essentially they're saying nothing like that was ever said. What happened was that the Iranians explained that they had some enriched uranium, and they said they had enriched that after President Trump pulled out of the nuclear agreement President Obama had negotiated. So it's sort of the situation today with this enriched uranium, was created by Trump's decision in his first term to do that. And separately, the Iranians offered to give up that enriched uranium and want it, and we're eager to talk. And so it's a very discordant, version of events that we're getting out of the administration. And even Witkoff sort of going out on the limb and claiming they were bragging about, having all this enriched uranium. It's another explanation of why we're at war. I'm just surprised by how the messaging is all over the place, but we're just trying to hold Witkoff accountable. There were crucial talks. We'd heard complaints about Witkoff about his negotiations last year with the Iranians, and that ended also in U.S. airstrikes. So but I was struck by what he said, and others say nothing like that was ever said by the Iranians.
It is the fruition of several decisions by the Trump administration, whether it's the first term pulling out of the Obama-era JCPOA. Many said, OK, you're taking this deal off the table. You're going to get Iran enriching more uranium. That is the situation that you got. Now you need a new solution to it. We're seeing those negotiations. The idea with Witkoff, the concern always was that he doesn't have a background in diplomacy. Will he be up to the task in these talks, those with Ukraine and Russia? Now I think we're seeing those questions sort of start to be answered. Again, a lot of questions that were asked early on in this administration, now we're getting answers to, and honestly, the answers are not great. MS Now senior national security reporter David Rohde, thank you for trying to help us track the why here and the why now. It's something that we're still going to be tracking very closely in the coming hours, days, and of course, weeks.